Baby ma'am, we are live, so you can start.
Is this visible? This presentation is visible or not?
So presentation is not visible. You are visible. Your lecture is audible to us.
Is this different concepts in matrix for LIS professionals? This slide is visible or not?
No, it's not visible. You are visible.
How it
Sir,
will be visible, sir?
you deliver your lecture and share the PPT with us. We will share with the participant.
Okay, sir. Okay.
So, baby ma'am, are you there? You are muted. Please unmute yourself. Hi, you are now unmuted yourself. You can start.
And we start?
Yes, ma'am, you can start.
Yes. You need to be all in. Okay, fine. Good evening. Welcomes you all in today's session. And today's session is on metric library. In today's session, for joining us today, Dr. Casey Garg holds a PhD degree in library and information science with specialization in cytometrics. He joined CSIR Stats in 1983, where from he superannuated as chief scientist in January 2012. He has published more than 100 papers in different fields of bibliometrics, cytometrics in leading national and international journals of repute, and is one of the most prolific authors from India in the area of bibliometrics and cytometrics. He was the founding editor, Journal of Cytometric Research, and now the editorial board member of the same. In addition, he is also the editorial board member of Colnet Journal of Cytometrics and Information Management, Annals of Library and Information Science. He is an active reviewer for Journal of Cytometric Research, Colnet Journal of Cytometrics and Information Management, Annals of Library and Information Science, Cytometrics, Current Science, Decidog Journal of Library and Information Technology, and Library Herald. He is life member of the International Society for the Cytometrics and Informatics, ISLIC, and Delhi Library Association. So this is all about Dr. Casey Garg. Now I welcome Dr. Casey Garg to join us and to give his lecture on the different metrics in library and information science. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Baby, and thank you, Professor Shukla, to you also. The topic of my discussion is different concepts in metrics for LIS professionals. What I am going to present in this presentation is concepts in metrics, bibliometric mapping, dimensions of bibliometric mapping, methodology for undertaking bibliometric mapping, methods of counting, basic indicators for undertaking bibliometric mapping, different measures of impact using citations, impact factor, citation per paper, that is CPP, and RCI, relative citation impact. If you want to ask me anything, anywhere, you can stop me. Okay. The concepts, what are the several concepts? Those are in vogue in bibliometrics. The first is the bibliometrics itself. Bibliometrics was suggested by Pritchard, and this term originated in 1969. And later in 1978, a new term, cytometrics, was originated. And then came informatics. This was also suggested in 1978. All these terms or concepts are used in synonymously. Some people use Biblometrics, some people use Standardization, some people use Informatrics. And somebody may ask me, what is the difference between the three? Biblometrics is basically based on the publication output, while Standardization takes into consideration the manpower as well as the funding of science. And the Standardization study the correlation between the publication output and the funding and manpower. And then Informatrics, this means the measurement of information. Inform means information and matrix means measurement of information. And altmetrics, this is a new term, this is of recent origin. And altmetrics is basically not measuring of publications, but it is the measure of how often a person's work is being quoted in the social media. Okay. Now we come to bibliometric evaluation or bibliometric mapping. Research evaluation using bibliometrics is also known as bibliometric mapping. Mapping or evaluation are techniques used for measuring and assessing science using publication and citation data. This field of bibliometrics gained momentum after the publication of Science Citation Index by Eugene Garfield of ISI. ISI is Institute of Scientific Information, Philadelphia, USA, and now this has been taken over by Clarivate Analytics. What are the dimensions of bibliometric mapping or evaluation? Bibliometric mapping or research evaluation can be done at different levels. The first is cross-national mapping, where research output from several different countries is compared to examine their strength and weakness. One can identify most productive countries using this technique. Then the second is the national mapping, where research output from an individual country is evaluated. One can examine the regional distribution of S&T by this. For example, one can take the study of India research output, and how it is distributed among the different states of India. This exercise can be done. And then the next is interinstitutional mapping and identification of leading national and international institutions and their relative strengths and weaknesses. In this, you have to identify the institutions. This is continued from the previous slide. Evaluation of output according to performing sectors like academic institutions or public funded research institutions. For suppose you want to evaluate Indian output, then you can study the output according to performing sectors like academic institutions, that is universities or colleges, or public funded research institutions like CSIR, DST, ICMR, like that. Interfield comparison, relative emphasis of different nations on different disciplines. What are the application of this mapping? First is to examine the connectivity of research output of a nation to the mainstream science by using the following parameters. The first is the publishing country of journals, domestic versus international journals. As I think, I don't know the participants, but most of the scientists from India, they want to publish their papers in journals originated from abroad. Then the second is impact factor of the journals, and the third is the pattern of citation. Publishing country of journal. What does this indicate? If an article is published in an international journal, it will carry more reputation as compared to a domestic journal. Hence, Indian scientists prefer to publish a large share of their publications in international journals. Then the impact factor of a journal. If a paper is published in a non-SCI index journal, it carries less prestige. Suppose in this slide, I said, if an article is published in an international journal, suppose you are publishing in an international journal, and that journal is not indexed by Science Citation Index or Scopus, then that will carry less weight as compared to a journal published from India and being indexed in Science Citation Index or Scopus database. If a paper is published in a journal having a high impact factor, it will have more reputation than one having low impact factor. Applications of bibliometrics. What are the applications of this bibliometrics? Identification of most productive countries and impact of their output. You can identify with the data available from Web of Science or Science Citation Index or Scopus. You can identify the most productive countries, which are the most productive countries, and what is the impact of their output in terms of citations. Then the second is identification of most productive institutions and the impact of their output. Similarly, like countries, one can identify most productive institutions. Then the third is most prolific authors and impact of their output. Then the fourth is pattern of citation and identification of highly cited authors. How many papers has been cited 0 times? How many papers has been cited 50 times or more times, or 1 time or 2 times, like that. And collaboration pattern. Collaboration pattern means how the scientists are collaborating, whether they are collaborating with domestic institutions or they are collaborating with international institutions for different nations and different fields. Now, what is the methodology for undertaking a bibliometric evaluation? First of all, the scholar has to choose a proper database and the time period. Now, in this direction, I want to say the time period should not, I have mentioned here in the last, time period for analysis should not be too small and should be large enough to point out trends. Two commonly used databases are Science Citation Index Expanded or Web of Science. This is also called Web of Science, or Scopus. When these databases were not there, bibliometricians used the database related to a subject, like chemical abstract for chemistry, physics abstract for physics, mathematical reviews for mathematics, like that. But these two databases, this Web of Science or Science Citation Index and Scopus, they are multidisciplinary databases. They include all the subjects in their records. Data from these databases can be downloaded directly and can be converted to a database for analysis. Then this time period I have already mentioned to you. What are the main variables that need downloading? What variables we have to download? The first is the name of the author with their affiliation, where they are working. Type of publication, in what type of documents that author has published, like journal articles, reviews, proceeding papers published as journal articles, letters and notes. Name of the institution and the citation obtained by each published record. How often that paper has been cited. Name of the journal with its country of publication. Now, the data you have downloaded, that is to be enriched. Before enriching, the data is to be standardized and cleaned. What does this mean? Data is to be standardized and cleaned. For this, suppose my name is Kailash Chandra Garg, and when I write a paper, I give my initials as K.C. Garg. Some authors, what they do, they will give Kailash C. Garg. So to overcome this problem, these days the primary journals, they ask you the first name and the last name. They don't consider the middle name. Most of the primary journals published from abroad, they don't ask you the middle name. They ask you the first name and the last name, so that your name is standardized. But if it is not standardized, then the scholar who is making the analysis, he has to standardize it. Similar is the case with institutions. Somebody will write University of Delhi, somebody will write Delhi University. So this will create a confusion when you when you analyze the data like that. So you have to standardize the name of the authors and name of the institution, as well as the countries also, because somewhere you may find US, somewhere you may find USA. So like that, that problem exists, and this is very important for bibliometric analysis to standardize the data. Impact factor of the journals in which the papers were published. The data you download, that does not provide you the impact factor of the journals. It is the duty of the scholar who is making the analysis to feed the impact factor of the journals in which the papers has been published. Publishing country of the journal. Publishing country of the journal is available from the database. Type of institution. This is not available in the data. This is the duty of the scholar to update it. Whether the researcher is working in an academic institution, or he is working in a research institution, or he is working in a private industry, etc. Okay, this is actually I have written this for Indian context. Geographical location of the institutions, where it is located. Type of collaboration, whether it is local, domestic, or international. Local means where two scientists from the same lab or same college are working together, but they are working in different divisions. Domestic, suppose I am working in Delhi institution and somebody else is working, say, in Bhubaneswar. So that is become domestic. And international, somebody is working in India and the other fellow is working in other country, USA, you can say like that. So that is international. What document types are to be analyzed? Only papers published as articles in journals, proceeding papers published as journal articles, reviews, letters, and notes are to be analyzed. Only these 5 types of documents are to be included in the analysis. Okay, I have written the next point. Other form of publication such as meeting abstracts, editorials, corrections, book reviews, etc. are not to be analyzed. These type of document types, they are not included in the analysis because they don't make any citation impact. Meeting abstract have no citations. Editorials sometimes have, but editorials in medical journals, they make impact. But for other editorials, there is no impact. Corrections make no impact. Book reviews make no impact. So these are not to be added. Proceeding paper for engineering, especially computer science, are to be analyzed. Now we come to the method of counting. This is very important because in the earlier stages, when I started working in the area of scientometrics in the 1985, we were using the first author count. But first author count gives the credit only to the first author. It doesn't give credit to the co-authors. So this is very important that the co-author should also get a credit. So there are 3 different methods. Straight count, only first author is given credit. This is known as straight count. Then the second is the fractional count. If there are 5 authors in a paper, each is given a credit of 1/5. 1/5 for each. So 1/5 plus 1/5 5 times, that will become 1 paper. But this fractional count is very difficult to make. Then is the complete count, in which all authors are given equal credit, unit credit. Suppose there are 3 authors, each will get 1 credit. So what does it mean? It results in inflation of records of publication and citation data, because we are counting 1 paper 3 times for 3 different authors. So this results in inflation. of publications as well as citation. Two basic indicators for bibliometric evaluation. What are these two basic indicators? The first is the publication counts in peer-reviewed journals. I have used the word peer-reviewed here because there are several journals which are not peer-reviewed. These days, several predatory journals are also being published, which are not peer-reviewed, and they are asking you for a fees that you pay 2,000 rupees and we will publish your paper. Some few years back, I delivered a talk in Vijayawada. There is one university, Care University in Vijayawada, and I delivered a talk there. There I met a gentleman who was working somewhere as a librarian. So he told me, sir, I have published a paper, and when he appeared for a higher post, the experts there asked him, where you have published this paper? So he told me, I have published this paper. Then they asked, did you pay some fees for this? So he said, yes, sir, I paid fees. So straightforward, they said, we will not consider your candidature. So the journal should be peer reviewed. Publication counts are the key element and most basic in every bibliometric scientometric evaluation. Publications. Then what does publications reflect? Reflect the government science policy and national interest and priorities. Measures the quantity of output. Recently, there was an article in Times of India, this quantity of output. I will tell you an example. In 1980s, India was ranked 8th in the world output, international output, based on science citation index data. And China was ranking 30th. But by the time we came in 90s, China ranked most probably some 7 or 8, and India ranked 13. And one of my colleagues in stats and one gentleman from JNU or in this IP University, they published one article in Nature. And you will not believe, there was a hue and cry in the parliament that how China can take over India. And there were so many explanations. One explanation was also provided by NISTATS, but that was not very satisfactory. Publication counts. Publication counts can be used for comparing performance of individual countries. Individual countries, you can say India, Japan, like that, or group of countries like ASEAN, BRICS, institutions or authors. Identification of scientific centers, sub-centers and peripheries of world science. Pattern of co-authorship and collaboration. This is also, these days, this pattern of co-authorship has also become important because the number of authors in a paper are constantly increasing. To build up science city maps of a country and mobility of scientists. You can also study mobility of scientists, but the mobility of scientists has not been studied in much detail here in India as well as abroad also. But you can make this, and you can make science city maps of a country. For example, in India, the capital cities of India, capital city of states, they are the main centers of science. Limitations. What are the limitations of publication counts? Do not indicate the impact of published output. Mere count of publications may lead to an incorrect inference about the contribution an individual makes to the extension of knowledge. In view of this, scientists have started using count of citations or surrogate measures of quality based on impact factor or journal publishing country of journals. I was just mentioning you about the Chinese output. There are several studies where it has been observed that China's output is much more than India's output, but Indian publications make more impact in terms of citations as compared to China. Then the second is the citation counts. This is the most active area of bibliometrics or cytometrics. Addresses question of impact, influence, and transfer of knowledge. Now, I want to give you one example. Somebody may say, no, what is the use of this citation? I will quote here Garfield about the Nobel laureates. Garfield, when he started the Science Citation Index, after starting that some few years later, he made a study and he predicted 17 scientists based on the citation data that these 17 scientists will get Nobel Prizes in the coming years. And you will not believe, out of the 17 scientists, 8 got the Nobel Prize. So citation count is a very valuable tool if used correctly. Then the third point is provide quantitative information on the visibility and influence of the papers. The basic criticism against citation is that all citations are not made for scholarly reasons. There are other reasons for citations besides scholarship of the work. Because citations are also made, suppose I know a scientist, so if he says, yeah, Garg, you cite my paper also. So like that, there are problems with the citation. So that's why citation is also always not, sometimes there are more negative citations like that. Then we come to surrogate measures of citations. Now, why these surrogate measures of citations are needed? Because when I started working in the area of cytometrics, you will not believe that getting the citations from this Science Citation Index, it was very difficult. Why it was difficult? Because it was only a printed version, available in printed version. And in that printed version, the letters are so small that you have to use a magnifying glass just to see the number, how many times this paper has been cited. So there was a need for these surrogate measures. The most commonly used surrogate measure of citation is the impact factor or Sci-Mago ranking. This Sci-Mago ranking is for Scopus database journals. The measure is based on the citation frequency of the journal in which the articles appear, or impact factor I am discussing in the next slide. Impact factor, what is this impact factor? This is the ratio of the number of citations a journal article receives to the number of papers published over a period of time. Now, here also remains some confusion among the scholars. They get confused. So one has to be extra careful. This impact factor is available in, there is a document called Journal Citation Reports. So this is available in that. I have not mentioned it here. Most probably I forgot it to mention. So impact factor of a journal, say you want the impact factor of a journal for 2021. So how we will calculate it? We will calculate it number of citations received by the articles published in the journal X in the year 2019 and 2020, and their citations in 2021. Meaning by citations are counted for articles published in previous 2 years. So this is, one has to be very careful if you want to calculate the impact factor yourself. Because there are some 12,000 journals in JCR, Journal Citation Report, for which impact factor is available. But if suppose you want to calculate the impact factor of a journal where you have published and that is not being included in your JCR, Journal Citation Report, then you can also calculate it. Then we come to the immediacy index. This measures how quickly an article is cited. The immediacy index of a journal X for a particular year would be calculated by dividing the number of all the citations of article journal X received during that particular for the articles published by journal X in that year. Meaning by, suppose you want to calculate the immediacy index for 2021, then you have to count 2021 citations to articles published in 2021. So this is the difference, and one has to be extra careful. But immediacy index is not being used frequently for measuring the impact of the output. Then we come to the normalized impact factor. Now, why this normalized impact factor is necessary? This normalized impact factor is necessary because journals in different fields have different impact factor. And suppose you are comparing a output of a country and different fields, then you have to normalize that impact factor. And impact factor, I have mentioned, impact factor of a journal varies from one field to another field. Hence, it is necessary to normalize the impact factor when comparing the performance in different fields. Professor B.K. Sen, he was my teacher. He has expired recently. He has suggested a simple method for normalizing the impact factor. This is NIFIJ is equal to GIFIJ divided by max GIFIJ into 10. This NIF is the normalized impact factor which you get after calculation of journal I in subfield J. GIF is the Garfield impact factor which is available in journal citation report of journal I in subfield J, and max GIF, then you will get this max. What is the maximum impact factor, Garfield impact factor in that in those subject categories? So you have to divide by that and multiply by 10. 10 is a constant just to make this comparable. So we have multiplied it by 10. And in this, review journals are excluded. So this is a drawback. Garfield has also suggested a method that is based on ranking of journals where you can calculate the normalized impact factor. Now we come to some basic indicators based on these citations. The first is the citation per paper. This is the most widely used indicator in mapping exercises. It is a relative indicator computed as the average number of citations per publication. That is number of citations divided by number of papers. This normalizes the wide variety in volume of literature published by prolific publishing nations and other smaller nations for a meaningful comparison of research influence. Then is the relative citation impact. This is the ratio of countries' share of world citations, percent citations, to countries' share of world publications, percent publications. RCI is equal to 1, indicates that country's citation rate is equal to the world citation rate. RCI greater than 1 indicates that country's citation rate is higher than the world citation rate. And RCI less than 1 indicates that country's citation rate is less than world citation rate. This relative citation impact was suggested by a foreign scientist which goes by the name May, M-A-Y, May. Then we come to the H index. This H index was suggested by Hirsch, and this paper was published in Proceedings of the National Science Academy of the USA. The H index of a scientist is H if H among her N articles have at least H citations each, and other remaining N minus H articles have fewer than H articles. An H index, say, of 10 of a scientist means that among all the articles published by the scientist have received at least 10 citations. Suppose you want to calculate the H index of a scientist, then you have to arrange his papers in decreasing order of citations. And when the citations and number of papers become equal, then that is his H index. Calculation for different indicators. This I have demonstrated how to calculate the normalized impact factor. Suppose we have journals in two different fields. Let us consider them whose impact factor is 1.3 and the highest impact factor of the journal is 5.2 in that field. Then the normalized impact factor will be 1.3 divided by 5.2 into 10 is equal to 2.5. and this citation per paper and relative citation impact. In a study on forest fungal research, the total number of publications were 854, 22.5% of the total global output. These papers received 13679, 26.0% citations. Hence, CPP is equal to citations divided by number of publications. This is the citation and this is the number of publications is equal to 16. And RCI is equal to 26.6. That is the percentage of citations divided by percentage of publications. So this comes to be 1.2. What bibliometric or scientific evaluation indicate? First of all, it indicates channels of communication used for communicating research results by different nations or institutions. That I told you in the beginning, whether they are publications in journal articles, whether they are reviews, whether they are letters, whether they are notes or proceeding papers published as journal articles. So this is the first, you will get this information. Then we come, second is cross-national assessment. How the research efforts distributed among different nations. Is it distributed evenly or is it concentrated only among few nations? It can also be used to study the regional distribution of scientific output in a country or assessment of different performing sectors like academic institutions or public funded research institutions. A few days back, there was a small write-up in the Times of India where it has mentioned, this is based on the report of the National Science Foundation of the USA, that India now ranks among the top 3 nations of the world in scientific output of papers. Interinstitution comparison. How the research effort distributed among different institutions, which are the leading national and international institutions in the field, and what are their relative strengths and weaknesses. For example, I did a bibliometric study on lasers. That was my PhD topic. And I found that out of the 14 institutions in the field of laser research, in 1992, 2 institutions from India, they were among those 14 institutions. One was BARC, Bhabha Atomic Research Center, and the other was Hyderabad University of Hyderabad. Then interfield comparison to assess the relative emphasis of different nations on different disciplines like physics, chemistry, mathematics, engineering, etc., or subfields within a broad discipline. For example, India is very strong in chemistry research. It can be used to examine connectivity of research output of a nation to the mainstream science and its impact by examining the impact factor of the journal where the research results are published and their pattern of citation. Mainstream science means that the research is being published in journals published from abroad or having high impact factor like that. Can be used for examining the co-authorship and collaboration pattern for different nations in different fields of science and technology. Can be helpful in identification of most prolific and highly cited authors in science and technology as a whole or a discipline of the same. Most prolific authors and highly cited authors. This I have repeated it again by mistake. And this is an illustration. I have given only one. Publication output impact of different performing sectors in plant genetics. This is a project I did for ICAR. In that project, I found that academic institutions, they were the major contributors in the output, and they received 34% citations. So RCI was this and CPP was this. Indian Council of Agriculture Research, this is 16%, and this is their total citation percentage. Their RCI is a little better. CPP is also a little better. State agriculture universities, their RCI is very low. CPP is also low. This is CSIR. This RCI is 1.2, and in fact this CPP is 3.8. So among all these organizations, CSIR has the best value of RCI as well as CPP. And this is the conclusion. Bibliometric evaluation knowledge is highly useful for policymakers. It is a dangerous weapon in assessing individuals. Individuals should not be assessed by using bibliometrics. On the contrary, it is valuable and sometimes essential technique in assessing the scientific output of large institutions and nations. So this is all in my presentation. If you have any question, please do ask.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for the very informative presentation on the different concepts of metrics in library and information science.
Thank you for inviting me to deliver this talk.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. If the questions are there, sir, definitely we will send later on the questions and we will answer them.
Okay.
Thank you very much, sir, for the nice talk. Thank you
very much. I will send you this PowerPoint presentation maybe to you.
Yes, sir. Please forward to us.
Okay.
And we will place it. Ji.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. All the
Dr.
best.
Ashish. Thank you, sir. Dr. Ashish.
Coming in a minute.
Ashish ji. Ravinder ji. Hello.
Hello.
ठीक है सर, आप लीव कर सकते हैं गर्ग सर.
Okay. All the best, baby.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Hello.